Alrighty, hello everyone, how's it going? Hope you guys are having a fantastic day. We are back with another version of Into the Megaverse. And we are talking today about conventions, running convention games and whatnot. And we have a good group with us tonight. Tonight we have Gaming Megaverse, Cameron Cleveland, and our very own Glistum as well. So, welcome everybody.
Hey.
Hi there.
Hello.
All right. Let's get into this. So,
Okay.
just a little introduction, everyone. So you guys have, I personally haven't run a convention game, so I'm going to be running the questions, and they've got the answers for us. But just a little bit of brief history, maybe like keep it under a minute each, about like what your experiences are in general, like how many convention games you've run and some events that you've run them at.
Okay. I've run, I don't know, at least 20, probably more, convention games all over Los Angeles and Orange counties in the past, as well as a couple in San Francisco area and a couple in Washington State many years ago. I have I've run Palladium Fantasy, Rifts, and Rifts as far as Palladium games at conventions. I've never run a Heroes game or a Dead Rain game at a convention, and the thing that I used to highlight the most before recently was the fact that in Palladium Fantasy used to be the only place where you could play monster characters, and people used to really enjoy that as a difference. So, although that is not necessarily true anymore, it used to be.
All right. So what would you say the biggest convention that you've run? Like, name of the convention.
PAX West.
PAX Prime?
PAX West, PAX Prime. It's been called both through the years.
Yeah, I think it's West now. Yeah.
I think they're back to West now. But yeah, it used to be called PAX Prime up in Washington State. It's, typically in the top 5 every year.
All right. Toko.
I've only really started running games the last couple of years, and I run maybe a couple every year. There's a local convention that I've been running at the last few years that they've done it. I run in a couple different game shops in the area. All one-shots, Heroes Unlimited and Chaos Earth are some of my favorites. I also run Rifts, and I do a little bit of Nightbane as well, and sometimes I mix them up differently depending on the game story I'm running. But yeah, that's it. I'm really kind of a small fry compared to Victor and Cameron.
All right, and Cameron.
Well, I've been running convention games for a total of 13 years. I've been running at the LAX Strategicon conventions, OrCon Gateway, and GameX. Also, for the 5 years that Gen Con SoCal was in operation in the Anaheim area, I also ran there. And I've run Shadowrun 2nd Edition, Vampire the Masquerade. I've run 3.5 Dragonlance D&D. And recently, in the last couple years, I've run Palladium Rifts and now Savage Rifts, baby.
Oh, man. Bringing out the new stuff.
Awesome. I bring it on.
Awesome. Okay, so for those that aren't familiar with convention games a little bit, how would a brand new person going to a convention find out and join one of your guys' games? And I guess how would you go about this is a two-parter. How would you go about setting up and contacting a convention to set up your games?
I mean, the ones I've done, the convention websites, they have a lot of their submission guidelines, and it's just reaching out to them early. They got a lot of planning they got to do, so you get in touch with them, you find out if you can submit games to them, and typically, you can as long as you're in the time window, and then they slot you in and they get you on the schedule. And the earlier you are, the more likely you'll be on the schedule and not like a last-minute submission that misses any deadlines. And then actually at the games, at the conventions, I don't know what other ones are like. Like I said, I've only really done the one local one, but they have a whole area that's just all the different games that they're going to be running for the next batch of games that are run. And then people can sign up on there. They can sign up online. There's a whole bunch of different ways they can find it. And then, I try to put it out a little bit, like with the Palladium forums and stuff too. That hey, this stuff's going on over here.
Cameron or Victor, do you have anything you guys want to add to that?
I was just going to say, nowadays everything is pretty much sign up on the website, or some of the smaller cons even it will have a Facebook page. But most of the sign up stuff now is online. I will say that Dave writes some of the best descriptions of games that I have seen before, and I wanted to call that out. And
Thank you.
The other thing is that if you do it every year at the same convention, you tend to get a following, and people tend to like. You can kind of count on certain people showing up each year, if you're running a good game. But to start out, the main thing is make your game sound interesting. Make it sound like something that if you read it, hey, I'd want to play in that. And that's the key. Is just make it sound like it's different than everything else. Especially when you're running something that is not D&D or Pathfinder, you kind of have to draw people in to a different game system. Cameron, you want to add to that?
Well, is the question what you do to get into the system before the actual event? In that part, I would agree with what everything's saying. It's all online. You schedule, you correspond with the RPG department head and get everything squared away, and then actually show up. And if you've never been to a convention, that part's kind of a hunt, because you have to go to the HQ. You have to find out where your games are. Then you have to find out if it's been double booked. Is there some people playing, Munchkin in your room or in your table space? You have to kind of elbow for room, that kind of thing. And there's all kind of logistics that have to go through. And having a friend or someone that's experienced at the convention kind of leading the way helps a lot.
Awesome. Now, for players, let's talk a little bit about the players. How fast, and as the GMs, if you guys notice this, how fast do your games fill up? How fast do people have to jump on your games? And I'm going to say games in general, and then on a separate note, you did kind of touch on this a little bit, given Megaverse. How much would that be different for games like Palladium and whatnot? Game systems that people may not know a lot about. How fast do those fill up? So I'll leave that open to you.
So like up here in the Northeast, I'm from Connecticut. There hasn't really been a lot of draw, unfortunately, for Palladium. So I would definitely say my games have not filled up, and there's always room. I'm lucky if I get most of the slots filled, and there's been times that there's only been just a couple people, which is still a blast, and I still love running even when it's like that. But I definitely I'm not beating them off with a stick up here.
Um, eh, I have not run a game in the last year plus as far as con games, mostly because of the fact that the local cons are always on holiday weekends, and well, it's a holiday weekend, so it usually means that the wife's got other plans. But in the past, I've had varied experience with a number of people. Some games fill very, very fast, and I am beating people up with a stick. Sometimes it's something that you are like begging, running around trying to get people to sign up for your game.
Yeah, like you're getting the janitor to be like, "Can you play?"
I will say that the staff of a lot of the gaming conventions are really good to work with on like upping your attendance. They will typically tell you, "Hey, you should say this about your game, or you should say that about your game." They will a lot of times suggest to people who are going up last minute, going, "Hey, I want to play in a game, in a fantasy game. Do you know of any that have openings?" And they'll help suggest yours. I find that one of the great things to me about Palladium is the fact that there's so many different genres, so you can run a genre that is currently popular, and that will help you make sure that it gets sold out, versus some systems that are just lock, stock, and barrel the same every single time. So I find that in different cities and different things have different appeals. There are conventions that are anime based that you want to run a Robotech at. You should not be running a fantasy game at an anime convention typically. So a lot of it's just knowing your audience as well.
And Cameron, I know you've got a lot to add to this too, but you did mention your experience on running things outside of Palladium. So I'm really looking to you for this answer. For how do you see a comparison between the two? Do you see people jumping on those game systems that they know the most, such as Palladium and Pathfinder, or are they, when someone's going to a convention, looking to try the new games?
Wow, you asked the small questions. That's such a big eat. I'll take it one pie slice at a time. Okay, outside of my games, let's just start there. The majority of the gamers that are doing RPGs are going to be in the organized play areas. Pathfinder Society, the Adventurers League, and they are set up as a living campaign, and they're pre-generated, and there's like ballroom-sized rooms full of people playing the same 3 or 4 seasonal adventures. And that's kind of where I started when I went back to conventions a few years ago, and I brought my 9-year-old daughter, and we kind of went into that, and it was very, very shake and bake. It was very, very basic, uniform kind of thing. It's like going to Denny's. You know what you're going to get. And that's where the majority of people kind of congregate. Now, in the other category of the RPGs where you have all the independents, it really is just kind of a crapshoot. You can tell who the really good GMs are because they filled up names in all the sign-up sheets for all 12 people, and they flipped the sheet over and they kept writing. And there's some people that are standing there at the sign-up sheets. Does anyone want to play my game? I really need some players, and it's a full spectrum and gambit of different things that can happen. Now, in regards to my experiences in running my games in the last 2 years, I started with a personal request from a group of people that always played in open gaming, and they asked me, "Hey, do you know how to play Rifts or any Palladium game?" I went, "Yeah, I played it like back in the day, back in high school and junior high." And they went, "Can you run it?" Why, sure. And I started with 4 people, my daughter included, in open gaming. Then the next convention, I went up to the RPG department, asked if I could have a room, and they have this something called gaming on demand, where they have GMs, and if you want that are just waiting for a pitch of players, where you can just go down there, sign up, and boom, and it's like instantaneous gaming. It's a good feature the convention offers. To fast forward this a little bit, I'm now running 3 games every convention, and my game group has moved up to 47 people. And I think Victor was at the first convention game where I had opened up and advertised, and I had 17 people showed up for an 8-person game 45 minutes before the game, and there was like standing room only. There was like so many gamers and gamer girlfriends in there. It was like elbow people, and I had to go right down the roster, like who signed up, who's here on time. First come, first serve. You snooze, you lose. And that's why I started expanding to 3 different games, because I just had to keep up with the demand, and it hasn't stopped.
To do it.
Sorry.
Hey, it's Hippo Baby.
So, do you, when you guys do get those situations that you do get a lot of interest in those, do you turn people away, or do you let your numbers grow? Like, what would your group's numbers be on average, and do you fluctuate on the fly?
I've definitely fluctuated, but very, very little. I don't actually like a very large group, so about 6 or 7 is my my comfort level. And I think once I had some people just really, really, please, 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 and I went up to 8 players with them, but that was about as much as I would do.
Do you have backup sheets in case that happens, or how do you do that on the fly?
In that case, I had the backups. When I'm prepared, I like to have at least 1 or 2 extra characters, and I intend to run just so everybody gets a choice of the characters they can play. So in this case, they didn't get a choice; they got what was left over. But
so if I advertise for a 6-person game, I always have 6 extra. I literally just allow myself to double it. I've run a 20-person game before. It's not something I really enjoy.
No, not at all.
It's too many people. So I tend to kind of limit myself at 12 now. But for an in-person con game, I can do 12 and keep people involved. But it usually also means getting some sort of buy-in to perhaps going overtime. And if not going overtime, you really have to trim your story quite a bit to keep everyone involved and still keep it going. So a lot of that is just flexibility on the fly, and that just comes with experience. That's not anything that's difficult. It's just doing it and knowing that you may not get it right the first time. Cameron, I know you grow your group.
I don't make it happen. I haven't started advertising yet. It's all word of mouth. It's like someone brings a friend who brings a friend who brings a friend, and I get so much overflow that people ask to sit and watch, and they're not even playing. So how do I accommodate the influx of people? I run 8-person games, and as I said, I run 3 over 3 days, and that did not accommodate the amount of people coming in from being friends of a friend, that I needed to incorporate a co-GM and have run 2 8-person groups in tandem with 2 GMs coordinating on different locations. So, for example, in the last convention, they were supposed to steal a coalition battleship. Well, one group, went into the engine room, and another group went over to the bridge, and that's how they coordinated. Now, of course, the 2 GMs are handling the communication between the 2 groups, but that's just how I built rail in front of that train that just kept on chugging and it's not stopping for anybody so far.
Gotcha.
See how it goes.
Yeah. So how do you guys, for those 20-person games, because I know that you both said that you both played those, what do you guys do for when those 20 people show up? Do you have pre-gens? Do you make them up? Are people... And then kind of getting into the next question so that Toka can revisit it. Let's say someone comes with their own character and they say, hey, I went by the book. You can look it over. It's within the level range. Can I play my character? So that's kind of... I just threw 3 questions at you. But what do you do for those large 20-person groups?
Yeah, so like I said, nowadays I'll limit it, but when I did have that many people show up, the reason I ended up being able to do that was the fact that 4 of them brought their own character sheets, so I did look over them. I made a couple of minor changes to like 3 of them because they had stuff that wasn't official material, that was out of outside material, that I just said, sorry, not going to allow that. That's not in the main system books or whatever it was. But that's how I did it. I could have probably just knocked up a NPC, given them a couple sheets pretty quickly, but that is kind of why I limit it now to no more than. And most cons have a waiting sheet, a sign in a sheet that allows
like a college wait list.
Yeah, like a wait list.
Yeah.
So you kind of have an idea ahead of time how many people. Although it depends on the convention.
Yeah.
But yes, I'm flexible enough to allow outside characters if the games does it. Now, I have one game that I have run many times that's just an intro fantasy game. Mm-hmm. That's first level people, so I wouldn't allow anything from outside unless it was a first level character. But outside of that, I tend to run a flexible power level thing so I could fit it in.
Okay. Cameron?
So how do I deal with the 20-person games? Well, back the 17-person load I got that Victor witnessed, I was running, at that time, Palladium Riffs, and I had gotten this wonderful thing called a GM kit that you can get on the forums through the Megaverse Ambassador program. Thank you.
It's wonderful. Actually free to all Megaverse ambassadors, by the way. It's only $5 if you don't want to sign up. It's
on
not
RPG.
Expensive. Yep.
If I picked that kit up and threw it in the air, it would turn into sunshine. I liked it that much. It helped. So I printed all 20 pre-generated characters, and I've had people show up, and I just started, you don't have a character? Here you go. Here's 20 choices, and there's a huge variety of things. And I'm running a living campaign. So if you get a hold of me outside of the convention and send me your character more than 3 days before the convention, I'll go over it and clear it, and then boom, you can do it. And if you don't do that, you snooze, you lose. Here's a Psi X alien with a bikini. There you go. Have fun. All right. Now, I had 17 people show up. So I took 8, and I had overflow. We never finished. In 8 hours, we didn't finish that adventure because there's all kinds of things going on that everyone was doing, adding extra scenes like, oh, I don't know, selling drugs and arms deals and selling home and garden magazines because it was like golden age artifacts and they're trying to get money off of it. All kinds of crazy things are going on. I mean, stuff that I didn't write, things that the players were just throwing into the game like, hey, I want to do this. Okay, no problem. Boom, there you go. I ended up asking the RPG head to give me another space to finish it on Sunday, and then we still didn't get it done, so we had to get together on Monday and do it again. So I think I accommodated all 17 people eventually, but that's how you deal with that many people. At least that's how I dealt with it.
Yeah, and I think, like I said, I haven't been in that situation, thankfully, but I wouldn't go anywhere near that high. I think in my heyday of running games, I did 10 people at once, and even that was a stretch for me. That was very tough for the small time we did that. But in a convention, like if there was a bunch of people, I would absolutely say, you know what, there's no room, but maybe we could work something out. I'm certainly around. We can maybe run another game later on. I'm willing to run this again and work out with the people coordinating the game section and see if there is, either a way to get officially in there or even just find a spot to game. There's usually places where you can just kind of like do pickup games. Mm-hmm. That's kind of how I would end up handling that.
Mm-hmm. Which is a totally valid way to do it. It's like, hey, I'll run a separate game for you at this time. I think that's a great idea.
Oh man, sorry, my alerts aren't in the right layer. But Waltman, thank you so much for that follow and welcome to the Hippopon. Much Hippo love.
Thank you, Waltman.
Hippo love.
Let's see here. So you will allow people somewhat, just general consensus, you will allow people within reason, if you guys approve, to bring their own characters. Is that what I'm hearing?
Oh, yeah, and I forgot to answer that. But yes, I would look it over and make sure it fits the game I want to run. Mm-hmm. But for the most part, it'd probably have to be pretty wild to not fit in one of the games that I run. As long as they're in the theme. Like, don't show up with a superhero for a Nightbane game. Don't show up with a mage for a Coalition Soldier game. If you're in the right vein of things, we can accommodate that. I'm usually okay with that.
Just a quick yes or no question for everyone. How many of you have had the fanboys for particular systems, not just Palladium, that bring in the Munchkins? We got one yes?
Absolutely.
How do you respond?
I have no problem with Munchkin characters. Bring it on, guys.
Awesome.
I have the same attitude. Just, usually you just change things around to make sure that either it's pro-Munchkin or anti-Munchkin, depending on how that person is. It is rare that I don't want to have someone in my game. The whole idea of a con is get as many people involved as you can.
Yeah, and I haven't had to deal with that, but I mean, my games, I scale them down as low as 2 players when necessary, all the way up to 8. I mean, I can handle if somebody wants to play a really powerful character. I'm ready.
Yeah. So this question, because this was asked by Waltman, how do you guys keep it fun when you do have more than your set amount of people? How do you do that? I heard there was some splitting of parties. There was a lot of people standing together, working as a group. How do you keep it fun? How do you keep it interested? Do people walk away?
I mean, I haven't had anyone walk away, but when we've gotten a larger group of people, like when I've gotten up to like the 8 or so that I would run, usually the group ends up kind of splitting organically, and then they're in smaller packs doing things. And then what I do to try and make sure everybody stays involved is I just try not to stay too long on any one group. So, these 2 people, 3, even 4 people have gone over here to do this one thing. Let's deal with you guys real quick. Okay, here's something for you to chew on. Now let me go to these other guys who've been chewing on something. Now let's resolve that and kind of go back and forth and, pull everyone together for big combats and so on.
I find that puzzles and riddles are great things to get people involved on their own in a split group situation. So I always have something that's a little odd. Now, the negative thing to that is if you've got, you kind of have to create your own nowadays, since, anyone can use Google.
Well, I guess I'll ask this question. When you do create those, do you say phones on the table, everybody?
I did that the last time, because I had not created my own. I had put that, so I asked for everyone to put their phone down, and I said, if it rings, you can grab it, but outside of that, put it down. So, yes.
Awesome. And Cameron?
Okay. It's basically this. This KISS rule. Keep it simple, make it fun. If I have an 8-person party and I have something's going on this side of the bar, where they have 4 characters and they're dealing, with finding work, and they're talking to the black market or something. My job as the GM, the storyteller, the narrator, is I am the entertainment of the night. So I have to make sure whatever these 4 people over here are watching has to be entertaining to watch, because they're an audience until I get back to them. Now, if that means that a merc comes up and wants to buy a comfort woman for the Cyber Night because they think it's funny, I'll throw that in there, just to have this group of people point and laugh at the Cyber Night over here. Just be creative, keep it simple, make it fun. Now, once I come back over here to this group, then I get to deal with something else, and I'll throw another curveball at them to entertain these people over here. Now, I also have to give a system reference. In Savage Rifts, you can get allies, NPCs, kind of like hirelings and followers and from D&D kind of thing. And whenever there's, like, for example, a combat, and you get an extra 10, red shirts or whoever they are, the rules state to spread them out among all the players. That way, if someone's not in their fight, they have something to do. And I definitely utilize that. Like in the Battleship Adventure. Here's 20 mercs. Have fun. What do I do with that? You figure it out. Your character's in charge of these 5 guys, and your character's in charge of these 5 guys. And I go through turn taking. Start left, go right. What do you do? Watch the clock. What do you do? Watch the clock and just rifle through everything to make sure everyone's doing something at all times, as much as possible.
Awesome. So we talked a little bit about this. What do you guys try to do in the perfect world on your perfect sign-up sheets? What's your ideal amount of players?
I said my ideal is 6 to 7. I'll go up to 8, and if I ever get in a situation to do more, I'll entertain it on a case-by-case basis. But yeah, my ideal is 6 to 7. I put together a little paragraph summary of the high level. This is what we're doing. Kind of set the stage and give everyone the idea of what's happening, and then that's basically what I look to set up.
As far as ideal, I'm probably in a con game. If it depends, honestly. If it's 4 hours or less, I like 6. Between 4 and 6. If it's an 8-hour game, I like 8 to 10. Or even a 6-hour game, I'll do 8 to 10. I think that larger groups means longer time level. And back to one point, as far as keeping everyone involved, I mean, to go back to one of the things Cameron said, a lot of it is entertainment. I mean, for God's sakes, use funny voices, use hand gestures. One of my favorite things is to literally run around the table to, Joe over there who hasn't said something and go right next to his shoulder and say, okay, the guy's right next to you. What are you doing? Wake people up, get them involved, do whatever it takes.
Yeah, be like, so stop talking. They're not talking at all.
yeah. Make people laugh. Do whatever it is that you need to make sure that people are getting involved. And the other thing is, a lot of times your players will help you. The people who are playing at cons, not all of them, but many of them are very experienced players or GMs themselves. And if they see that you're trying to keep everyone involved, they will help you get everyone involved by saying, my character Hank is going to take Joe there and go off here, and they'll try and get them involved as well. And it's contagious.
Awesome. And Cameron?
The organic answer is as many as I can handle.
But if you had to put a number,
but that's a box full of chocolates because I don't know what players I'm going to get. And oh boy, have I found some curveballs in some conventions. Woo! Yeah, right.
I don't know what you're talking about.
What's the smallest amount of people you guys have had show up? Because we've heard kind of the most. What?
I've had nobody. It's happened.
Me too.
I've definitely had games with nobody. And I ran one game once with one person only because they were a really good friend of mine who made it a point to show up to play, and it was like, oh, no one else showed. You went all this way. We'll go through this. We'll make it work. But
my minimum is 3 players. I can run a game with 3 people.
Okay.
I have started a game with one person, and we were making such a racket and having such a good time that we got passers-by to join in.
That's awesome.
Fun is contagious.
And that kind of ties in with my my next question. Do you guys ever bribe people by bringing swag?
Oh gosh, yeah.
And how does that factor in? Do people kind of see product on the table and they head over and try to grab the swag and jet, or do they hang out for a while? How does that affect your games? How do you display your group and whatnot in that sense?
Yeah, I've never had anyone try to take the swag without it being offered. But it has definitely brought people over like, oh, hey, Rifts. I haven't played Rifts in a long time. Hey, I'd like to play that maybe later, or, let's talk about it a little bit. Or it's definitely kind of an eye catch draw to have that out. But yeah, I'll have swag. I'll have, bookmarks or even books, whatever either I can provide that I have extras of from old orders or what Palladium will actually provide to Megaversal ambassadors in certain cases, which is just very cool.
Do you have people that say, hey, I played for 10 minutes, can I have my swag and go? I'm just curious because I know there's people out there that do that.
I've been very lucky in that regard. I haven't had anything like that happen to me.
I haven't yet had that happen to me, but gosh, I don't know. I think that would make me just bust out laughing more than anything else if that happens.
And all achievements unlocked. Thank you for that, host. And he says, I just got here. Can I have some swag? Oh, yes. It's a different kind, though. We'll get it to you later.
Hi, AAU.
It's the After Dark swag. And Cameron, do you, being part of the Palladium Megaverse ambassadors, I know you get some awesome swag that you bring to the game. So I want to hear your good stories, your bad stories, and whatnot on that.
Okay. No one has ever tried to steal swag from me. And if they try, I have a sack hammer in my back pocket. Because when that happens, it's going to be happy time.
Oh, man.
All right. Now that I got that out of the way, moving on. Yeah, I absolutely do swag with all of my convention games. Okay, last two conventions, including the next convention coming up on September 1st through 4th, I've put in for Palladium to get about 40, maybe 43 rifters and art books or game books and source books. Everybody leaves at least with a rifter out of all my players. Also, I'm going to be getting, again, about $200 in gift certificates from Pinnacle Entertainment Group. And each of my games are role-play tournaments per session. So at the end of the game session, all the players are going to vote who the top 3 role players were, and I mean R-O-L-E, not R-O-L-L. Who is the most entertaining, immersive, thematic top 3 role players, and we're going to be getting dealer dollars out. 15, 10, and 5 dealer dollars. So you can take that, go downstairs to the dealer room, which is the gamer swap meet / kind of vendor area, and go buy game stuff with it, like it's money. So yeah, I make sure everyone leaves with a gift certificate, a rifter, and if they got the group voted them up, some dealer dollars.
Interesting enough, I think I've talked to each one of this group before, and all of us do some sort of MVP. So I think that's interesting.
Yeah,
it creates competition in a good way.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
You were going to say, Dave?
Oh, I was just going to say that I don't have dealer dollars or anything like that. It's usually the nice source books or world book or whatever that I have for representing the game that goes out to the MVP, and then the rifters and and the other more minor stuff goes out as the regular swag.
Now, if the MVP is someone that claims they have Palladium books and other stuff like that, do you ever tend to go for someone that says they're brand new at gaming? Do you try to get them the book over, even though they might not have been the most interactive player?
I always ask the group to vote, so I don't have a horse in the MVP race. But I don't know about the rest of the group.
Yeah, it's really the group's choice.
I set it up so that everyone walks away with a gift certificate and a rifter. That way, no one's empty-handed.
Cool deal. Okay, so we've talked a little bit about the setups of the games. I'm going to ask one more question, and then we're going to kind of get into the games themselves real quick here. So this question also comes from Waltman. He asked the question, doesn't multiple games come into the ability of a GM to properly focus on a game? And I asked him a question in response to that. So the first part of this one is, do games around you ever distract you at all? And then I'll ask the follow-up one after.
Yeah, from my experiences, that could definitely be tough. When there's a lot of gaming around you, a lot of the noise, and just everybody else is having a good time, just like you guys are. It could be a little tough to keep the focus. And mostly it's really tough to just kind of be heard. And it really makes it hard to do any kind of good ambiance, in my opinion. I haven't really been able to figure out how I would run like a horror kind of game in a convention setting, because I want to have like a certain ambiance whenever I do that, and there's just always all the noise around, and I don't think it gets distracting. It's just being able to overcome it.
I definitely have had situations where it's distracting. Again, I'm not someone that has to GM sitting behind a screen not moving, so I will get up and move around. And I find if you can do that, that means that the sound issue is not a big deal. But it can get distracting. And I think that's okay, because I'm sure some of my games have been distracting to the people around me as well. I think it's just part of a convention, is the noise, the hubbub, the energy. But I can see where Dave's coming from. I would like try and find some way to get a private room if I was going to run a heavy horror game. It's one of the reasons I've never run Dead Rain, because I don't think you can, which is Palladium zombie game. I don't think that you can really get the really dark edge of your seat type of thing unless you're in a private room.
All right. And I think Krillon pointed something else out about a headphone splitter. So it looks like technology can help with those kind of sounds. But yeah, please ask before you guys post links, because we can permit you. We just have to have an admin do it. Otherwise, we're going to block it instantly. The bot will. All right, Cameron. Do you get distracted?
Okay. This issue is my largest issue that I have to address first when I first started doing this. And the reason why is I bring my laptop, I got a subwoofer, I got speakers, I have mood music, I have soundboard. I mean, I've gotten recordings of naval railguns firing for the Glitter Boys.
How do we sign up for your games?
I think Cameron uses like some sort of moving truck and sets up like 6 days before the convention.
Do people ever ask if they're going to get kidnapped? You guys want to play a game?
Only the groupies do. So, yes, going into it, I had to address this specifically about, please give me put me in a room where noise is not an issue at all. In the first room they put me in, they put in a guy that was running role-playing games of Warner Brothers cartoon characters for like 5 to 10-year-olds. And they're just loud as hell anyway, so it just kind of rail guns and Bugs Bunny sounds and Roadrunner and everything going on. It was fine, no problem. Then they gave me one of the meeting rooms that had granite tables, Italian leather seats, and great echo, great acoustics, and it was a non-issue. Now that I require more space, they've actually given me a room that I have all to myself from the first hour, the minute the convention starts to the last minute it ends, and for 24/7, and we can be as loud and crazy and maniacal and mentally ill as we want. Especially Victor's cupcake crazy hero,
I think
female crazy hero character with
it's where the voice for Blossom came from, Chris.
Oh man.
If you like Mrs. Doubtfire, you'll love this character.
Oh man. So this one's more for you, Cameron. Do you build a reputation after a while, and do you find that your games fill up so fast that it's happening before the con then, after you get these big of kind of setups? Or are other people kind of doing the same thing and then pretty soon everyone's trying to get their private rooms. Like, what kind of? It's like
everyone have their own private room. It's
it,
a great experience.
does it turn into like like kind of like a pitmaster mindset where everybody's bringing their whole get up and everything and just trying to one up each other and be that impressive GM? Do you see that happening and kind of filling up?
Well, I'm sorry, that was a big. Could you? That was a long. Could you summarize that again, please?
So, with all these, all the high tech gadgets and whatnot that you bring to it, do you find that a lot of people are kind of copying that in a sense? Not really copying, but bringing more elements to the games. And does that affect your draw of your game to the point where it's booking a year in advance or whatever?
Yes. There's been other players in my games in the beginning that started running their own Palladium Rifts games, and that was a different kind of success. I won't want to get into that, but but what I've done is I'm not thinking like, oh, I'm the biggest, baddest guy on the block, and no one's cooler than me. What I'm doing is I'm creating a community. That GM is now a co-GM with me, and he's like, for example, I run North America, and in the Living campaign, he runs Eastern Europe. In his game, he's incorporating some of the same elements. He's just not going over the top like I am. And in his game, he's running a New German Republic intelligence special ops team that goes in the Eastern Europe, because there's something going in and destabilizing the warlords of Russia, and it's very supernatural in nature, and it's a big concern. So I don't think competitively. I think cooperatively. I want everyone on the same page. Because I got the Rifts Room next convention, I would like everyone in Southern California that's a Palladium fan to come on down right behind Party Games and have a meet and greet. Rub elbows, have some drinks, eat charred animal flesh, whatever we want. Have a good time.
Sounds good. Sadly, that's a bit of a drive for me, but I'm sure Gaming Megaverse will probably be there. So how fast do your games book up then?
Me or them?
You.
All of us.
You with
How
your
fast?
Your setups. Yep. Do you find that there's a wait list? Like,
let's just put it this way.
do you have a reputation, I guess, that it is filling up pretty fast yet?
I assume so. I don't leave that room all convention anymore. I don't even. If there's a dealer room, or a flea market deal, I haven't seen it in about a year, because I am just in that room, just doing my thing. As far as reputation's concerned, it's all word of mouth. So yeah.
One of the things that I find is that I echo Cameron's thing on creating a community. I mean, there is nothing to me more fun than being able to run your own games and have other GMs that come in and play, and you play in theirs, and the community just grows that way. It's a blast. And when that starts happening, it's a great thing, because you get to share ideas, you get to steal from people who you're in their games, and they can steal from you, and it's a blast.
Can I piggyback on that?
Please, yeah, go for it.
Okay. In the Orcon convention back in February, there was
This is Bay Area, correct? Or is this
the
Oregon one?
LAX. Los Angeles.
I'm horrible at my cons.
So, a gentleman that is an official playtester for Pinnacle Entertainment Group, name's Oscar. He had flown from Colorado Springs to LAX to run Savage Rifts. And I kind of met with him before he started his game. You know, I apologized that I couldn't get in this game and just kind of did kind of professional respect thing. And Sunday, when I had 20 people signing up for my 8-person game, he came in with the sign-up sheet and said, "Hey, you have a lot of overflow. Can I take all your overflow so everyone can game?" I went, "No problem. Have that table right over there." And it was just one big mob.
That's awesome. That is so awesome because it's nice to hear people working around or working together.
That's community, and I love that.
Yeah, definitely. All right, so let's get into the meat of the games because I know people are wanting to know these kinds of questions here, and we'll dive right into them. So we talked a little bit about pre-gen adventures. Do you guys have standalone adventures? But it sounds like, Cameron, you also have a continuing campaign. What do you guys prefer to run? Do you have certain cons that you do pre-gens and then continuations? And we're going to have to keep this one fairly fast because I do want to get to a lot of questions.
Yeah, I guess my answer is going to be pretty quick. I have just a couple short one-shots that I like to run. I typically only run the 4-hour games. I haven't really done any 6 or 8 hour blocks yet, but all my games fit within that time frame, and they're just all on their own. They don't tie into other games, and I might run them more than once even. Victor?
I at cons I only run one shots. That's just how it is for me.
All right, what I do on Friday, I'll keep it short. Friday I do one shots, but they're typically kind of like the Dragonlance Chronicles, where if you go to the next one shot, it'll be continuation of where you left off. And I kind of use those kind of like a quest hub if you've ever done any MMOs, RPGs. And on my Saturday and Sunday games, it's a campaign game, and it's just a continual storyline, and we just keep on chugging.
All right. Awesome. Here's the next question then. Are these mostly pre-gens, or do you guys create a one-off game and then kind of stick with that? What do you guys prefer? And for those that do pre-gens, here's the follow-up. Do you run into players that know the pre-gens and come in all-knowing?
I will say that I make my own pre-gens. I don't do in-book pre-gens, although, like Cameron, sometimes I will have those as backups. But I make my own. That way people don't know them dead on going in.
Yeah, all my stuff is homemade. All my adventures, all my characters, I've put everything together. It's the setting of Rifts or Heroes Unlimited or Nightbane, but I don't use any of the stuff directly out of the book, except maybe some of the more setting specific stuff that I'm interacting with.
For Palladium, I use the GM kit pre-gens. For Savage Rifts, I use the Archetype 1 and 2 folios of pre-generated characters. And when something is custom made, I leave that up to my players to make exactly what they want that they like.
Awesome. So, sorry, 1 second here, because I think we do have another question here. What is, and I believe this one's from Inferno Canuck, when you have people making those characters or adding or playing those characters, what's the most destructive character you have ever played or seen played, and as a GM, how do you compensate for that?
I don't really think I have any stories along this lines. Everything's been fairly even for me, but I can already see Victor laughing.
Yeah, I've had some interesting ones. I actually had a pretty infamous one. The first year of Gen Con LA, someone brought a real pistol to my game, and the cops came in. All sorts of fun. So that was fun. So that's
Wow.
that's my worst experience.
Okay, I would probably say the most heavy-handed player-made character I've had that was back when I was doing Palladium Rifts. He wanted to make a brood kill, cynetic, mind over matter crazy hero.
Oh man.
Let that sink in for a minute. And I spent a month trying to figure out how much cyberware he can have, what the limit is, and where the character started and where the character ended. And after 30 days, the player went, nah, I'll play something else.
Wow.
Good stuff.
Kind of tying in with Kirill and what Kirill said, even though I didn't ask the question. Do you guys ever have player miscommunications that build up into fights or anything like that?
I've never seen real fists, but I have seen some heated discussions. But that's rare, terribly rare.
Yeah, I've had players that get pretty frustrated with the actions of like one or two other players, and it's usually just been a case of having to step back and saying, all right, out of character you're frustrated, but you guys need to really focus on what your character is going to be doing here, and we need to keep it in the game and not let it spill out into the real world. I've the couple times we've come close to that, I've managed to stop that from getting worse.
And SciLP Inferno Connect, thank you for that follow. Much love and welcome to the Hippo Pod. You guys drop those.
Welcome.
Hello.
This is one of my favorite and fun ones. Since you're at a convention, do you ever label your games as mature? And if so, in what context?
But this will be quick. My games I actually label as roughly PG-13, and they've managed to stay that way. So I haven't had too much above that, but I've also had all kinds of people who are very familiar with the game, this is their first time gaming, their first time with Rifts or any Palladium game. So I've had a good variety and mix, and it's allowed us to kind of keep within not having to get too into the rated R or even X range there.
Cameron?
My 11-year-old plays in all of my Rift games. So I have to be really, really creative when players throw things out like, I'm going to buy the Cyber Knight a serving winch, and she's gonna take him upstairs. Okay, since Cyber Knight armor is fused to your body and you can't take it off, all of a sudden you hear clank, 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 clank from the ceiling above you. Okay, moving on.
Fades to black kind of situation.
Yeah.
I most of my games are PG-13. I have done some late night ones that I label adult, and absolutely I have checked IDs because I think it's I'm not going to mess with it when I say these games are adult. So yes, I have done that, but most of them are not that way.
And for those interested, our game right after this one is adult, I would say. Maybe, kind of, yeah.
It is.
Definitely adult.
That's why we have the mature filter permanently on. All right, so let's talk a little bit, because I know we're running a little tight on time to keep up with that. Let's talk the meat and potatoes. When you're planning your games, how do you plan your adventures? Talk about like hooks and different things like that, and how much of it is on rails and how much is not, and if players get off rails, what do you do?
Oh gosh, my games are definitely Rails. It's a 4-hour game. I pre-generate all the characters, and they all have the hook and the adventure. You all want to see this. All the characters want to see this succeed, and the players, when they sit down to play, they buy into that. And if they don't, and they really go off the rails, then I adapt. But at that point, it's like, well, we're not really playing the game we sat down to play. You're just going to run around and shoot things or do whatever, and okay, but you lose. At the end of the day, there was a win condition. You don't make it. Making the games is I usually sit down and I have like the intro where everybody gets together, and even though it's on the character sheet, we kind of go over, here's what you're going to be doing. Here's why you're going to be doing it. And, here's the initial scene to start doing it in. And then from there, it gets kind of free form. I said it's on Rails, but it's on Rails to an end. And I have a lot of stuff in the middle that can happen, and it depends on how they go through it all. They might be really smart. They might skip something. They may have to backtrack. They may have to go through everything painfully. It really all depends. But from there, it gets basically all my games have like an end, almost like a boss battle at the end where, this is the final thing, whether it's a battle or a final confrontation of some kind that you have to overcome. And you either make it there and overcome it, or you don't overcome it, or you fail on the way. And then that's the end.
Awesome. Victor?
A 4-hour game has definitely got a beginning and end, and I tend to be really open about the middle, but the beginning and end are usually on a rail, unless something happens in the middle that I think, and I can feel the players think, is more interesting than my original idea, and then I'll run with it. But typically there's a set beginning and end. And at this point, I've been GMing for so many years because I'm an old fart that I tend to just write outlines. I don't write a whole lot. As far as planning goes, the most writing I do is for the pre-gens. That everything else is kind of in my head, and also more what the players want. But there's always a beginning and end written.
All right. And Cameron?
When I write my adventures, I kind of stick to try to put in the same elements. A combat encounter, an investigation encounter, a social dilemma, a world-building encounter, and something that is weird and or funny. And I try to... Like, for example, in my beginning thing on Fridays, I'll have a linear type adventure, but for the campaign game, I'll have it decentralized where eventually you'll go from one point to the next. And if you don't, then, okay, there's a man of storm coming. What? Why is that happening? You might want to ask this person over here and send them over in that direction.
Awesome. All right. So how are we looking? We still got some time here. Let's talk a little bit about range of experience for players. Do you find that you guys have more novices or beginners, or do you find that you have more experienced people that are familiar with the Palladium system going to your games? And how do you deal if there is a mix? And what do you do? Do players help each other out, or do you find that you're doing a lot of the work for them?
Players have definitely helped each other out when you have a mix. Mostly, though, what I've ended up having is people who are very unfamiliar with Palladium or even unfamiliar with gaming. And so that's been very fun to be, either their first introduction to gaming in general or their first introduction to Palladium. And that's usually been a real big blast. But yeah, when we have a mix, everyone's usually been very polite, helping them out. Look here on your character sheet. This is the role you need to make. This is the thing we're doing now. It's been really good in that regard. I think everybody's been very cooperative and helpful.
I find the same thing as Dave, that I've had a lot of brand new people in that either have never played Palladium or not had a whole lot of gaming experience. I will also prop Cameron up. My first Savage Rifts game ever was with Cameron, and he did a great job of explaining how it worked without making everyone else that was familiar with the system bored. So I just needed to say that.
Thank you. And by the way, in that game session, he got voted MVP for role playing in that session.
No wonder he's.
Sure. Okay.
I gave the swag to someone else. I already owned the swag.
Oh, good job. Good guy, GM. Okay, because I do want to get to some of these questions here. Following up again with since game conventions do have time limits, what do you do when you're running out of time or you want to have the game have some kind of final note? Do you ever feel rushed, and how do you deal with it?
What a great question too, for the fact that we're rushing towards the end of our time here.
And this comes from Inferno Canuck.
I'd usually keep a pretty wary eye on the time as we're gaming. I kind of have an idea in mind that, by the time we're halfway through my time limit, we should be roughly about halfway through the game. And if we're not, then I can start adjusting things accordingly. I've definitely felt crunched for time once or twice that, we're like the last half hour of my time, and, I can see people waiting to want to start showing up at tables, and, we still haven't even encountered the end boss yet. So I will kind of adjust. You have to adjust the game on the fly to get people to where they need to go at the end. I've never been in a position where I've had to rob people of the conclusion or the climax of the game, but I just try to pay attention as we go along to make sure that they have a good experience to get to the end we've been driving to this whole time, so we can get through it in the time limit.
Cameron?
I write it in such a way that if I have to drop sandbags on the hot air balloon ride, I will. Where if there's anything extra, I'll just cut the fat and get right to the point. And watch the clock always. Always, always, always.
I'll just second everything Cameron just said. That's exactly how I do it.
Do you guys ever use anything such as like chess clocks or timers or anything like that for turns?
I have a little hourglass that I'll pull out, but a lot of times that's more for suspense and actual keeping people on their turn. I love just kind of setting it out without saying a word and just letting players start to notice it. That's always been my favorite thing. But I will use that if necessary to keep turns short.
Why do I feel like Cameron has a full-sized one that he just pulls out of the duffel bag and pops it out?
I wear it around my neck.
Like Flava Flav?
Absolutely.
Dave, I absolutely love that. I have to do that. I've always used my phone, but I love that idea.
Yeah, I think that visible reputation, or what am I saying? The visible representation of the time is very helpful versus just some kind of phone. So I agree there. Going back to Waltman's other question that he had, and it was, doesn't running multiple games cut into the ability of a GM to properly focus on a game? This one meaning if you're running multiple games in a convention and they're different storylines, do you have any issues kind of thinking and staying in that one game, or do you bounce around and kind of get worried about the other one or mix facts up?
By having the shorter games, the 4-hour games, the one-shots there, I haven't had that problem at all. I've shown up 3-4 games ready to run, and just being able to go from one to the other has been no problem at all. I do all my prep ahead of time, and it hasn't been an issue for me, honestly.
I guess I could see where it might get confusing. I think a lot of that is just experience. I think that if I know people who run 3-4 part games, so it's the same story line, and that they'll pick up where they left off. And there is absolutely nothing wrong with that. I think I've played in those. I think they're a lot of fun. Um, if you're the type of person that will get distracted by, starting to throw in this fantasy character into this Rifts game, I suggest that type of approach. But no, I don't have an issue with that, but I can see where that might be an issue. Hope that helps.
And Cameron?
Non-issue.
And I just want to say too, on top of what Victor said, that if you definitely think it would be an issue if you were looking to run games like this, then don't do that.
Mm-hmm.
Definitely try to keep your games all in one genre or the same game, or a game story following multiple, through multiple sessions. Whatever you need to not have that issue. I definitely wouldn't put yourself in a position to be having that issue.
I over-prepare and play test everything before a convention. That's why in the game I ran with Victor, I accidentally unsaved over 90% of the adventure and ran it from memory for 4 hours.
And I never knew that he had lost his stuff. He told me afterwards.
Oh,
Yes.
wow. All right. So we got another question, and this is going to kind of tie in with one that I have, but this one is... Hey, Lurch. This question is from Krillin, and he says, I have a question. When is Palladium Books coming to Australia? And to follow that up, more so, if you do finish a game and you live in an area where it's hard to find an actual full-on campaign, what are some steps that you tell players to help them get involved in a group or find groups that they can do something more long-term?
Oh boy. Well, I mean, I can't speak for Palladium, but I'm not going to be in Australia anytime soon. Sorry. As far as trying to find games outside of conventions, there's a lot of resources online. There's the actual company website. There's Facebook groups. There's some other websites that have popped up over the years that all offer to kind of, have you put your information on there that you're looking for games. Local stores, even if the stores don't carry the game system, they're still, if they allow gaming in the store, they're still very conductive to people either looking to play games or people who want to run games actually trying to sign up and run games from there. So that would basically be my advice: is local stores, Facebook groups, and company website forums and other online locations. Just reach out.
All right. Do you have any in particular that you would recommend off the top of your head?
I would,
other than the Palladium main site and forums.
Yeah, there's a couple Facebook groups. There's Palladium fan groups, and I don't know the exact sites for them, but I know there's Rifts ones. There's a whole bunch out there actually that you'd be able to find just doing a quick search for Rifts or Palladium on Facebook.
Pen and paper games is a good thing, and Roll20 is a great one as well.
Also, Fantasy Grounds.
Fantasy Grounds is also great. Although there aren't that many, there's a lot more Savage Rifts on Fantasy Grounds than Palladium, but Savage Rifts is a lot of fun. So
awesome. And Krillin, to answer your question a little bit more specifically, if there isn't something there, you could always start some kind of convention out there, and you can be the first one to run some games out there. So if you have any questions, I'm sure Gaming Megaverse can talk with you and put some people in contact with you if you need any help with that. And as soon as that does start growing, I'm sure it will get Palladium's attention. So with that, I think we are pretty much out of time here. Do you guys have any final advice for people thinking about doing this, thinking about becoming an MA? How hard is it being an MA? Anything that you guys want to say before we just kind of end the show?
I would just say, I've been in MA for a few years. It's a lot of fun. It's very laid back. The guys you deal with are very great. And if you're looking to do this, even if you're not just running conventions, if that's intimidating, local game stores. Some game stores will have just gaming nights. Just show up and look to run a game or set stuff up. It's fun. It's fun to run.
Cameron?
When I do my play tests, I do them at local game stores, and I do the exact same setup as far as swag's concerned. And the MA program, as I said, if you threw it up in the air and turned it into sunshine, it's a supportive, inclusive community, and as you can see, we get along.
Yeah,
we're in the family.
Definitely.
Come join us all. Just to add, I mean, it's really easy to be a Megaverse ambassador or MA, and running a con game is just diving in head first and going for it. It's a lot of fun, and you meet great people, and that's to me the best part of it is that you meet people from anywhere and everywhere, and you develop new friendships that it's a blast. So there you go. Just a quick thought. Some people have been asking if we're going to be doing more of these. Yes, we're going to try and do at least one into the Megaverse, preferably 2 a month.
I feel like August is going to have 3 or more because we are going to be doing some late night ones.
Yep.
So guys, just some quick updates. I think we're going to be doing Secrets of Atlanteans coming up. We're going to be doing Byzantium. We're going to be reviewing, and we are working on getting one together, kind of like this format with content creators. So that is coming. We're going to try to get some awesome content creators, maybe someone that's in the channel right now watching.
Hint, hint.
Hint.
We want that.
Yeah, so we're going to be talking hopefully with content creators and just kind of getting that going. So that's what's coming up soon, guys, and we hope, very subtle, we hope you guys enjoyed tonight. Again, if you guys have any questions or anything, hit us up on Twitter, hit us up on Discord as well. And we are more than happy to answer any questions, and I can forward any questions to whomever you have. And I feel like, Cameron, you are going to be very booked at your next conventions. If you're not already. That 20s,
guys.
the 20s is going to turn into 50. I'm just saying. What's the record? Is the record Kevin's 25 for Palladium?
I know Kevin ran a group of 26 once. I don't know if that's his record.
Okay, so Cameron, that's what you gotta beat, and I want to hear about it, and we all want to hear about it.
There's 6 GMs in my group. I'm ready.
All right, awesome, cool deal. Well, everyone, thank you for hanging out. Does anyone have any last things that they want to say? Any conventions coming up that they want to talk about that they're going to be running, or things that you want people to be aware of before we go?
Labor Day weekend, Cameron?
Yes. For September 1st through 4th at the LAX Hilton Hotel will be the Gateway Convention brought on by Strategicon. And go to the Party Games HQ, go right behind the curtain, and you will find the Rifts room. Yep. We're going to play, have fun, have a good time.
Awesome.
A God Rebuilt starts in just over half an hour on the same channel.
Yep. So you guys can stay tuned, grab some food and whatnot.
Which I need to go do.
And Toko, do you have anything coming up?
Nothing's coming up for a little while. I'm actually going to start looking at some other conventions in the area and branching out. But typically what I've been running is Kineticon, which is out of Hartford. And that's not coming around again until next July, but I'll definitely be there.
Awesome. Cool deal. And then one last question that we completely forgot. What's the convention policies on alcohol and food and whatnot? At games, do they allow that for you guys? Or do you guys allow that? And I'm saying nope.
I haven't seen alcohol allowed, but food's been allowed.
There you go.
It depends on the hotel or the convention center. Some allow food, some do not. I've never seen alcohol allowed.
All right. I think we're going to have to change that now.
At my convention location, alcohol is permitted as long as it's bought from the hotel. No outside food. And I have had players kind of have a brew or two.
There you go. Awesome. So that game just got even better, guys.
Oh, and let's see. Palladium Open House next April.
Yep. So
Speaking of things
start
that
saving up, guys.
Oh, yeah.
I think was
Is alcohol
April
permitted
18th.
there?
What's
Yep.
that?
Is alcohol permitted there?
Not in the warehouse. However, the late night gaming at the hotel. I have participated in some bottles of whiskey games.
There you go.
You got the sauce. Good.
Those are the good ones. All right, so awesome. Thank you, everyone, for hanging out. We hope you have a fantastic day. See you all in just a short moment when we start God Rebuilt after this. And then this Thursday is second game or second episode of Last of Our Kind, so check that out as well. That's 10:30 Pacific Standard Time. All right, everyone, have a fantastic evening. We'll see you next time. Much people love.
Ah.